By parachute, we mean symbol of unity. By only works, we mean only promotes the idea of harmony most effectively. By it opens, when it opens, we mean when it lets Central and Southeast Europe to join in. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking basically on the case line that we stand on the idea of promotion of harmony. And this house will be proving to you with 5 main arguments. I, as a proposition leader, will be giving you 3 arguments for this motion. First of all, how this promotes harmony in the best possible way in the European Union. Secondly, how it helps in economic transition in the new members. Thirdly, how it's the most effective way to strengthen European Union right now. The second speaker of my side will be talking about first, how it promotes the idea of democracy most effectively. Secondly, how educational sector in the new members who are led to join in are helped. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, I would like to move on to my arguments, which is first of all, ladies and gentlemen, the idea of promotion.
Point of information, ma'am. Ma'am, do you agree with the opposition when we say that the European Union is working perfectly as it is right now?
No, first of all, sir, that's your burden of proof, and that's exactly what you're going to prove. In your case, you have to prove that right now, and the point of information, you can't ask that. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on with my arguments. First one about the idea of promotion of harmony. Ladies and gentlemen, Portugal and Ireland, they were not members of the European Union before. And at that time, we saw major social and economic problems over there. Right now, we see that financial assistance after they joined in the European Union, after there was this promotion of this idea of harmony, when they were joined in, we saw, ladies and gentlemen, that Ireland right now has outstripped UK economy right now, ladies and gentlemen. And this is a primary example to show you how this process of harmony brings in strength for the members of the European Union, the members we are advocating for, the members who we say when we say that this Central and Southeast Europe to join in should be like to join in. Ladies and gentlemen, so this was this idea of a promotion of harmony. We stand on the idea of promotion of harmony. And ladies and gentlemen, we believe the European Union will work and will promote the idea of harmony best and most effectively when it lets new members to join in. The second argument, thank you, sir. The second argument that we have for you today is about the point of economy. Ladies and gentlemen, European Union is the best form of union that you can have. It is actually the fourth stage and the ultimate stage of union. It is an economic union. It has, ladies and gentlemen, common agricultural policy. It has common tariff over all the countries who are outside this European Union. We, ladies and gentlemen, we in the European Union see the primary example. There is also free movement of capital and labor forces. This leads to foreign direct investment. And we see right now that UK has done foreign direct investment on other countries and has actually promoted this ideology of economy, has strengthened the economy of the this sort of, in a moment, this sort of foreign direct investment help all the members of the European Union. Yes.
Well, ma'am, if the UK is so helpful towards the European Union, why doesn't it want to join the EMU, the European Monetary Union?
Sir, okay. That is not the issue of this debate. The issue of this debate is not about whether UK wants to go into EMU or not. This issue of this debate is about whether European Union works best and most effectively in the promotion of idea of harmony when it opens its door to new members. That is the issue of the debate. That point of information was irrelevant to the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to this idea of economy. This European Union shows integration of economy, ladies and gentlemen. Integration of economies helps the new members to go from post-socialist economy to free market economy, ladies and gentlemen. The process of integration is made much more easier. The process of transition is made much more easier if you can go into European Union. And this, ladies and gentlemen, debate, I again remind the opposition, they seem to forget it again and again. This debate is about whether European Union promotes the idea of harmony most effectively when it lets new members to join in, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on. Yes.
Ma'am, wouldn't you agree with us that when economic unions become bigger, the argument, the bigger they are, the harder it will apply?
Okay, first of all, that argument is yet to be made. You can't take an argument and you can actually prove that argument in the parliament today. First of all, make that argument, then we will see what we can see about it. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, the third argument that we have for you today from the proposition side, how this is the most effective way to strengthen the solidarity between the European Union, to let new members from Central and Southeastern Europe to join in. We believe, ladies and gentlemen, this European Union is based on this principle of subsidiarity, this principle of proper management, this principle of good governance. How does it work? Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any local problems, the local region, the regional policies solve this problem. If there are any national problems, the national policies solve this problem. If there are any international problems, if there are any problems which reach in the international level, that is solved by the European Union, ladies and gentlemen. So you see a process of good governance here. You see a process of effective governance over here. And it is based on this principle on which Portugal and Ireland developed in the very first place when they joined in the European Union. These brought in more propaganda for European Union that yes, it is actually effective in strengthening countries in terms of economy and society. So, ladies and gentlemen, why is it the most effective solution to strengthen the European Union? No, thank you. Why is it the most effective solution to strengthen the European Union? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the principle of good governance is that if you let new members to join in, you strengthen them. You strengthen their economies, you strengthen their societies, and this is the best possible way that European Union could strengthen itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at this argument of most effective solution again, this stands in a sort of comparative analysis. What sort of comparison are you doing today?
Ma'am, wouldn't you agree with us that countries in Eastern Europe, such as Kosovo, have conflicts with other East European countries? Don't you think that's going to be a barrier to actually entry of these countries?
These sort of problems exist everywhere in the world, and that's exactly why peacekeeping organizations like the United Nations exist. That's exactly why, ladies and gentlemen, peacekeepers exist, and that's exactly the process. Conflicts will always exist, but there are going to be mechanisms to solve those problems. These conflicts are not the objections which lead you to believe that new members should not join in the European Union. If that is the only objection that the opposition has, they are seriously flawed. Moving on to my summation. What have I shown you today? Basically, three arguments based on the state line that we stand for promotion of harmony. We believe that European Union works best when and works best in the idea of promotion of harmony when it lets new members to join in it. First argument, it promotes the idea of harmony. We have seen Portugal and Ireland improving drastically when they joined the European Union. Second argument, how economically, 15 more seconds, how economic transitions are brought about painlessly. Third argument, this is the most effective solution. We beg you to propose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for presenting the positive case from the government side. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Honorable Leader from the opposition to present the negative case. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now in today's debate, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be telling you a couple of things. We believe that the definition the proposition have given is quite acceptable, and we'll debate on it, ladies and gentlemen. But as I'll be showing you throughout my speech, ladies and gentlemen, that the case that they've given is totally flawed. That they believe that entry of more countries in the European Union isn't going to work. Because what team proposition's idea is going to be that the EU has reached its optimum size. And the few member countries that are left, ladies and gentlemen, are those countries that will make it the optimum size. If you add anything else to it, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be a domino effect. What will happen is when you add one more of the countries will fall economically, socially, and politically. It will be a bad thing. There will be a crisis inside the EU, and there will be problems with it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is team proposition going to be debating? We're going to be talking about three main arguments, ladies and gentlemen. Our first argument is going to be the economic argument, how there is economic inequity for certain countries to join, why that wouldn't be a good thing, and why it would be counterproductive to the ideology of the European Union. And second, ladies and gentlemen, second speaker Ahsan, going to be talking about this present inequality that will exist if these countries are allowed to join. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we understand that these countries are countries in transition. And countries in transition means, ladies and gentlemen, they still aren't developed. And that means it'll become a contentious issue, something that Ahsan will touch, and I will elaborate a little bit on. And finally, we'll tell you why the current policy is best, ladies and gentlemen, why under the optimum level the European Union works. Now, ladies and gentlemen, coming to my first point. We understand the European Union is one of the best amalgamations of economic integration in the world. We completely agree with the proposition on that. What we do have a problem with, ladies and gentlemen, is including in further entry. And I'll be talking to this under the argument of economics. And I'll be giving you two main subheadings under which I'll be telling you that our case stands. Firstly, we're going to be telling you how there's economic inequity because you need to actually satisfy certain conditions to enter the EU. And under the status quo, ladies and gentlemen, and we are talking about status quo and even future principle as to why the proposition's policy is completely redundant. And secondly, I'll be telling you why, even under the present situation, ladies and gentlemen, there is economic inequity and that isn't a good thing. Now coming to my first point, which is A, about the different kinds of economic requirements that are fulfilled. Do you know that in order to actually get entry into the European Union, ladies and gentlemen, you need to have stable inflation rates, you need to have stable exchange rates, ladies and gentlemen. Something we think that countries such as those, like countries in transition, like those in the Eastern European countries, don't have. So we think, ladies and gentlemen, it will be detrimental for them. Why does the European Union actually require, ladies and gentlemen, these qualifications? It's not because they don't want people to come in. It's because it's necessity that there be a level playing field so the economies can work better. So we think, ladies and gentlemen, that nullifies anything that opposition will give you today. So thank you, ma'am. Now, secondly, ladies and gentlemen, let me go to my next argument about how in the current status quo that they raised, ladies and gentlemen, that it's going to be better for things to come in. Now, I raised the POI, and I said that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And what is the best example, ladies and gentlemen? The Soviet Union. Now, the Soviet Union, when it reached, ladies and gentlemen, a very high stage, what happened? It goes down. There's always an opportunity side. You can blow a bubble to such a radius that after which it will definitely deflate, ladies and gentlemen. And we think the European Union is reaching the ultimate side of the bubble. Because when you have it, there's going to be more repercussion, and that's never going to be a good thing. And that's something that Ahsan will highlight on even more. But ladies and gentlemen, we think that there's another issue that we need to address. That is the contentious issue, ladies and gentlemen, of how there is already inequity which will be further established, ladies and gentlemen, if we allow more countries to come in. Under the status quo, ladies and gentlemen, the situation is improving. But when you allow more and more countries to get in, there is more inequity. Let me explain this. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, we see that different countries, such as those in the European Union, enjoy different rates of subsidy under the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy. And what does this mean? That even if you pay taxes from one region, such as a region in Ireland, or you pay taxes from another region, such as a region in, let's say, something like Croatia, ladies and gentlemen, it won't work out. You know why? Because developed countries will, of course, want better things for themselves. We think that, ladies and gentlemen, and I will take this after I finish this point, at the end of the day, yes, when they take joint initiatives, it is a good thing. But when there are significant differences in subsidies that are given under the CAP, ladies and gentlemen, this won't improve under their policy, ladies and gentlemen. We think the current situation should stand. I ask them why not.
Portugal and Ireland, before they joined in, they had inequalities too. After they joined in, they improved drastically.
That's really interesting, Sumaiya, that you should bring that up. Because that brings me to, again, to my first point, which I clearly said, that you need to actually have stable economies, ladies and gentlemen. And when Ireland feels that stability requirement, ladies and gentlemen, that's when they were actually allowed entry into the European Union. So thank you very much, Sumaiya, for raising that argument, because that supports our case. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've shown you about how there are these inequalities. I've told you about the Common Agricultural Policy. I've told you even about the entry requirements that you need to get into the EU. But finally, I'll just give you one last argument and one last example. What we believe, ladies and gentlemen, and this point I again raised in the POI, was the difference and the indifference, actually, to which the UK wants to get into the European Monetary Union. That is the Eurozone. And I will take this as I finish this point. Because when you get into the Eurozone, we think it will be a good thing. But the UK doesn't want to do this because there are economic disparities between certain countries which have to be met, which need to be tackled under the status quo. Just by making more countries join in and increasing the inequality gap isn't going to solve the problem. We think that the Manarat case doesn't stand. Yes, Sumaiya.
If that was the principle that European Union operated on, there would not be more than 10 countries in the European Union right now.
Well, thank you, Sumaiya. To begin, I like the same point I've been reiterating. That at the end of the day, the European Union has reached its maximum stage. That is, there are 25
on that point.
Thank you, Sumaiya. And I won't take any more. There are 25 countries right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's the optimum state. And under the status quo, there are a few more countries that can join. And we think we're actually pushing it a little bit too far, but we can. But if we actually allow more countries to join in from the East European nations, ladies and gentlemen, these countries in transition, which have high inflation rates, these countries in transition who really can't cope with the stable exchange rates, ladies and gentlemen, it will not bring any betterment to the European Union. It will actually be counterproductive. And Ahsan's going to be, again, dealing this in his constructive round. Now, whatever I told you in today's debate, I've told you why the debate was indeed good, but I've told you exactly on principle, and even on policy, ladies and gentlemen, what Team Manarat doesn't stand. have given you 3 main points that my team is going to be rebutting them with. So I've talked about economics, I've talked about social factors, that is inequality, and finally I've talked about how the current policy works best, and that's what Ahsan is going to be elaborating on. I focused on economics today, ladies and gentlemen, and I told you, since we are talking about the European Union, we are talking about economic integration. But in order for economic integration to work at a optimum level, ladies and gentlemen, you need to know when to stop. You need to know that there is a certain level, ladies and gentlemen, that can actually promote better growth. There's actually a certain level, ladies and gentlemen, the EU can experience growth. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you why the EU is working the best under the current status quo. Something that I've highlighted in my first minute as well. It's working best, ladies and gentlemen, because you have a certain group of countries who share similar mentalities. You have a certain group of countries who share similar political views. You have a certain group of countries which have similar economic structures. Something, ladies and gentlemen, the countries in transition, that is the CITs that we will refer to out this debate, do not have, ladies and gentlemen. And if they are allowed entry into the European Union, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be counterproductive. Because we've already seen the different ways that certain people are discriminated against the CAP. And the CAP, ladies and gentlemen, just for your information, the East European states that is currently in the European Union don't get the adequate amount of subsidies that they are supposed to. It's already a contentious issue. You wanted to make it more contentious? We don't, ladies and gentlemen. And that's exactly what team opposition believe in. We don't want inequality under the CAP. We don't want inequality under the Eurozone. We think the European Union works better as it is, and team proposition's case stands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maimun, the leader from the opposition bench, for presenting the negative case. Ladies and gentlemen, please give the second speaker from the government side, the Deputy Prime Minister, to present the negative positive case. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker of the floor, and a very good evening to everyone present in Parliament. The motion that has been presented before this Parliament today states that minds are like, this House believes that minds are like parachutes, and it only functions when it opens. Now, I standing as the second speaker from the government bench, and first going to be talking about 2 major arguments. What are they? First of all, is the education argument that how education in the EU countries and the new members who join in is going to improve when this integration takes place. And secondly, I'm going to be talking about how in this era of democratization, democracy is promoted by this issue. Now, my first speaker has already talked about the 3 major issues that we are proposing on this debate. What are they? That how the economy is helped, how harmony comes between the countries, and thirdly, how it is the most effective solution in order to promote unity. To start off, Honourable Speaker, I'd like to start off by refuting the points of the opposition, starting with the opposition leader. The opposition leader, first of all, came up and presented to us his case line. Optimum size. The EU has already reached its optimum size. So, how do you measure what is the maximum size, or what is the How do you measure what exactly is the optimum size? You can never measure the optimum size of a country or a trade bloc like the EU. In that sense, their baseline is flawed.
I want to answer your question. Ma'am, you said what is the optimum size? The optimum size is decided by the fact when you have inequalities under the status quo, where existing Eastern countries are there. We are actually trying to fix that problem, not increase it. Thank you.
Sir, that's a major contradiction. He first comes up, the opposition leader first comes up and talks about that the EU is working best under the status quo. Then he comes up and says that the CAP is producing inequalities and it is not actually working. Major contradiction in there, sir. Now to move on, he talked about inequalities, and my first speaker has already presented the point of information that there were inequalities when Ireland and Portugal joined in. Those inequalities dissolved after they joined in. If we talk about inequalities, then the EU size would be only up to 10 countries and no other countries at all. Secondly, they talked about stable rates of inflation. No, sir. No, thank you, sir. Thirdly, they talked about stable rates of inflation. Rate of inflation is going to be there, and because there is unstable rate of inflation in these countries, they should join in the very first place to promote their economy. No, sir. They talked about differences, that there are differences between the countries. These differences is what makes them independent. These differences is what gives them separate identities. We are wanting the countries, the East European and Central European countries to join in, but we are not wanting them to lose their identities. To move on with my own arguments now. Democracy. How the joining in of new members from the Central European countries and the East European countries is going to help democracy. These countries have suffered past flaws due to public administration. These countries have been under the Iron Curtain for a very long time. No, thank you, sir. Now, these countries, because they have past flaws in public administration, are not enjoying their full rights to democracy right now. What we do want is that these countries to come under the Western influence of democracy in this era of democratization. We do not want countries to be left out, especially countries in Europe which deserves to be in the European Union as a name states. Now, joining in the European Union, how it will help higher quality of statement. Yes, sir.
You just reiterated right now that you're going against the EU Charter by allowing countries which don't have stable economies to go in. Don't you think this will be contentious by the present developed countries that are inside the EU?
Sir, I didn't get that. Can you repeat it?
The point is, ma'am, you're telling that they don't need to have stable economies, and you're going to force these countries into the EU against the EU Charter, which says you need to have stable economies. Don't you think countries like England, France, and are going to rebel against this?
Sir, 5 years ago, the EU claimed that they have reached their optimum size. Even then, they let Portugal and Ireland in. To move on, as I was saying about democracy, because they have higher quality state management, because now they are directly under the influence of Western democracies, we see their democracy helps. It even helps more because the EU has a policy of helping their new members. How? By providing financial assistance in agricultural, environment, industry, and public management. It helps in the transitional period from which they come from normal countries like the Central European countries, and the East European countries, to actually members of the EU. It helps in the economic growth in the long run, and it helps to resolve differences, and it helps to resolve their social and economic differences. To move on, I'm now going to talk about the education sector and how it helps. As we know, one of the other functions of EU is that it allows free transport of artisan production. One of them is the free movement of labor. And this actually provides the budding leaders of the economy, to have an opportunity to go and actually study the diverse cultures and experience the diverse education system provided by the other advanced European countries. We see that free movement of citizens in here allows no, thank you, sir. We see that free movement of citizens allows here work and study. That is, they have better opportunities to improve themselves in their work and in their study. They gain skills by experiencing and observing one of the No, sir. They gain skills by observing and experiencing the highest standards of education which the UK, Ireland, and these countries have. So, what do we see? We see that it helps democracy. It helps to promote democracy. Our definition today was, minds are like parachute and it only functions when it opens. But parachute, we meant the EU is a symbol of unity, and by function, no, sir. Now, and by function, we say that it promotes unity. We see that it promotes democracy, it promotes harmony, it promotes better education, it promotes the most effective solution to unity, to harmony. One of the mottos of the European Union is to promote harmony. That is exactly what our model is doing now most effectively. We see that if the Central European countries and the European countries and the East European countries, if they come under the European Union right now, their economics will be helped. The European Union also gains other economics and helps them and promotes unity, which is one of their basic mottos. So it's a win-win situation. At the end of the day, what have we presented to you? We have presented to you that how joining in of the other countries, of the Central European countries and East European countries, helps in the economic of both the European countries and the European Union. Secondly, it promotes democracy, which in this era of democratization is very necessary. It provides the most effective solution to promote unity. It provides a better chance of education for
please speak? Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now we'd like to invite the second member from the opposition to present the opposition extension. Thank you.
Hello. Shall I start? 3, 2, 1, go. Thank you, Honorable Chair, for giving me the floor today. The motion is that this House believes that a mine is like a parachute and that it works only when it opens. As my first speaker, Maimun, the first proposition has already accepted the definition. I'm here to extend the case in terms of why inequality of entry renders the proposition's case absolutely not possible to accept, and also how the current condition is sufficiently good for us not to change the current policy, the current EU structure. And he has also already told you how adding any more country is actually going to break the bubble that the EU is. It's at a tentative moment and how it's going to break. He has already given you how the EU requires all countries to have stable economic rates and stable inflation rates, exchange rates, which is not the case with Eastern European countries. But before I move on to my constructive arguments, there are some things that the opposition, the proposition has brought up, which requires clarification. They have asked us, they have told us that 5 years ago, the EU claimed of being the occupying side. How come Ireland and Portugal still accepted? We are here to answer the question, which brings me to my very important point, is that Ireland did not become a developed country, did not acquire a good economy after it joined the EU, my dear friends. It is essential to understand, my dear proposition, that the Ireland was required by the EU to have a stable exchange rate and stable inflation rate before it joined. How did it acquire such a thing? It introduced the zero corporate tax rate policy. What does that mean? It means that Ireland offered zero tax rates to any foreign investors. That is how they acquired a stable economy, a stable inflation rate, and that is how Ireland gained entry into the European Union. Does the Eastern European countries do that? Are the Eastern European countries of such a stable economy? It is not, ladies and gentlemen. What reason have we to believe that Eastern European countries will suddenly, overnight, become all these stable and sustainable economies if they gain entry into the European Union? No, not right now. Allow me to move on to my first point, which is the second point raised by the opposition side today, the inequality of entry. How is this valid? Ladies and gentlemen, first I'm going to talk about how the European Monetary Unit is actually functioning. Does actually function. The European Monetary Unit requires all countries have the same currency, ladies and gentlemen, which means that they're going to have the same financial policies. But look at this, the Eastern European countries are actually developing, they're actually rather undeveloped. Have we considered that countries like Kosovo, like countries like Serbia, which have internal conflicts throughout, they are going to suddenly overnight, just because they have joined the European Union, become stable economies, acquire financial policies that are developed keeping in mind the developed countries, European Monetary Unit, and we're going to assume that the Eastern European countries are going to reach that kind of stability? No, we're not. The European Monetary Unit would do terrible damage to the economies of these countries. Ladies and gentlemen, again, note this, that we tried to raise a point of information that was denied by the second speaker of the government side, is that the European Union is the biggest promoter of environment and environmental policy. Not right now, let me finish. But Eastern European countries and Central European countries, developing nations, they require industrialization. Ladies and gentlemen, please hear me well when I say that these countries will need to industrialize. They will need to pollute the government. They will not be able to sustain the European Union's policy of cap and trade, which requires that they not pollute over a certain amount. How are the Eastern European countries going to improve their economies while making sure that they do not pollute? How is this utopian idea going to work, ladies and gentlemen? I ask the opposition. Yes.
Can you prove to us that each and every single one of the countries in Central and Southeast Europe have high inflation rates?
Will the government side, will the proposition side please explain what are the each and every Eastern European countries which have not conveniently mentioned? We are not going to waste our time describing each and every country because we know in general that Eastern Europe is developing. Allow me not to digress from this point. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We are also going to consider the fact that Eastern European countries are transitional economies. That means they're still making the transition to developed economies. Their economic stability is not guaranteed. They cannot enter a European Union, which is simply a conglomeration of those countries with stable economies, bright futures, and who knows that what they're facing in the future. Eastern European countries are just being born. Countries like Kosovo are just gaining independence. How can we actually force them into this European Union? It's going to be detrimental for the European Union. They have nothing to gain. It's going to be detrimental for those Eastern European countries who are gaining entry to the European Union. Because they're going to face immensely huge policies they cannot tackle. The European Union are going to look down upon these countries who they cannot help properly. Because by their policies, by their own charter, does not hold valid for the Eastern European countries. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to move on to a second point. How the current condition is best. Ladies and gentlemen, the existing policy is perfectly fine. The existing policy dictates that all countries that are already that are part of the European Union follow the EMU and they follow the environmental policies. And these things actually work, ladies and gentlemen. Because of the EU's policy on environment, the Europe is coming to be. No, thank you. So we can assume the EU's policies are working so effectively that they actually give birth to future and greater environmental and economic and every policy. So the EU is a model for the rest of the world. Now, if Eastern European countries come in, the European Union is going to be so busy dealing with these small countries that its limited financial capabilities, which are occupied with developing itself, sustaining itself, which is its sole goal anyway, and they're going to be focused on these small countries whom they cannot help properly. And these small countries require independence from such a huge trade bloc. So the mind that the proposition describes is not going to be able to function as the mind should. Yes, ma'am.
You were talking about some of the operational problems which might occur when new members come in. Do you agree with the principle that there should be promotion of harmony?
My dear proposition, the entire point of the opposition speech is that harmony exists perfectly fine among the European Union, which is why we believe that this harmony that they are bringing in, this cultural inclusion that they are bringing in, is actually detrimental to both sides. Why? The cultural inclusion. What do I mean by that? That is also part of my third point. Why? No, not right now. What do we mean when the current policy is best? We mean that any inclusion of the cultures of the Eastern Europe are actually going to be confusing. It's not going to be a good match for the European Union. There would not be a good cultural mix. There would not be a good political, historical mix. So the Eastern European countries must first themselves be stable, like the very Ireland and Portugal that the proposition has pointed out to us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have to wait. We must necessarily and very practically going to have to wait till the time comes when Ireland and Portugal become the model for the Eastern European countries and they start becoming them. Because when the Eastern European countries become Ireland and Portugal, the opposition team will stand down and say the European Union, the mind, must open up to the Eastern European countries. But that day is not here, ladies and gentlemen. Until that day is here, we are going to oppose them. So, what have I told you today? In fact, what has the opposition side entirely told you today? The opposition side has told you how the European Union is a bubble and it's about to burst if Eastern European countries come in because there are large spikes and bubbles don't withstand spikes, ladies and gentlemen. We have also told you how the inequality of states means that any fusion, any amalgamation of these two parties are actually going to be detrimental to both sides. We have told you also how the current policy is so effective for the European Union. They are a model for the world, and any mix is going to disturb this wonderful mixture. Therefore, we are going to simply stand by the European Union as it is, because it is a perfect model of the world, as the proposition agrees with us. It is working fine. It requires no improvement. Therefore, we believe that the mind is not like a parachute. If the mind is the European Union, ladies and gentlemen, it should not open up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Honorable Second Member from the opposition for extending the negative case. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to summarize, for summarizing the speech from the government, the whip from the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving the floor. The resolution that has been placed in this Parliament states that this House believes that mind is like parachute and it only works when it's open. The very slightest sound reasons we definitely accept this motion. Now, what being a third speaker, my task is to solve the case present by my side, rebut the case present with the opposition side of today's debate. Now, what are the reasons based on which we believe that we should accept this motion? There are practically five. First, economy. Second, democracy. Third, how is the most effective solution. Fourth, education. And fifth, of course, harmony. Now, before clarifying that, because let us first of all look at what the opposition side has there to offer us. First of all, they've got like three clashes: economy, environment, and the most effective solution. First of all, they've said, like, let me first go into the economic point. Okay, once they get entered to the EU. So we can hope, based on this, that yes, in countries like enter European
Information, ma'am.
except
But these countries will only get admitted into the EU when they already have these perfect conditions that they must meet the charter. Otherwise, we're breaking the charter itself.
was it getting distributed?
The countries, the Eastern European countries, will only gain entry if they meet the conditions met by the charter, unless you want to modify the charter itself.
So they will meet the condition. I'll be coming into that in just a moment. So what I was trying to say is that they've said inequality existed, and we've proved to you how inequality can be dissolved. Now, what they're actually trying to say is that.
Point of information, ma'am.
So may I clarify your previous POI? What they're actually trying to say is that meet the condition. The speaker, we've said to you how money can be more effectively placed in both countries joining. And to be noted, dear speaker, all the countries in South and Central Asia does not have high rates of inflation, does not have high instability. So we can expect the countries to get in. And the more countries there are, yes, we can expect that the money conditions to be more effective. So what actually this got that proved to us. Before going to that, the government vice speaker gave the example of Soviet Union that the bigger they are, the higher they fall. The Soviet Union is not a trading bloc, dear speaker. Soviet Union is not a trading bloc. What we are trying to talk about is that we're talking about the European Union. This is an economic unit, this is a trading bloc. What we are trying to present is yes, accepted.
Since you agree with us that the charter must be modified for these countries to get in because they do not meet the requirements, and you also have not included the modification of the charter in the first speech, do we assume that you're changing your mind as deciding whether a debate must follow before this one that says the charter must be modified?
So what we're actually trying to say here is that since the problem that they're saying we do not have that problem, the countries can join in. There is this possibility of the countries in the South and Central Asia to join in. So that is how we can promote the idea of harmony, because the more countries they are included, the more harmony they have between themselves, because they're... May I clarify first? Because the more countries there are, the more harmony the solution is being made more effective. They're going on. They've said that, for example, let me just go on. The example that they presented regarding Soviet Union is actually flawed, because right here we're talking about trading bloc, we're not talking about any particular country. Then, they've talked about the environmental problem. I'm really confused that how this environmental problem cannot be solved if we include other countries from South and Central Asia. So we see that the problems that they have posed to us in this problem is actually flawed, and that what we're actually trying to say here is that the harmony solution, the solution of harmony is more effective when there are more countries joined in, and that this is not up to a number of countries to be inside the European Union. Now going on to the reasons which we have presented in this problem and exactly why the more countries are there in the European Union, how this actually promotes a resolution that we have placed in this problem. First of all, we've talked about economy, that how if there are more countries inside it, the more countries will be benefited, and how this is actually a better solution. So secondly, we talked about democracy, how again, more countries from Central and Central and Southeast Asian, if included, how they'll be under the influence of accepted.
Well, ma'am, in order for their entrance to the EU, they need to have good democracy, they need to have good governance. If they don't have good governance, they can't enter the EU, they can't complement the EU will be detrimental.
No, sir. I don't actually accept that. Because what actually we're trying to say is that because this problem actually exists, we want them to enter EU. And how these problems will be solved if they gain entrance inside the European Union. So what actually we're trying to say here, these are the problems that we have faced, that because these are the problems which have been faced by this country, it's a necessity that this country join in the European Union. That we've talked about how this is the most effective solution, that local problems, national problems, and even international problems can be faced if these countries are inside the European Union. Then we've talked about also that very big argument about education, that if countries are joined together in a trading bloc, there will be more communication between them, and that the people inside it, they'll be having the chance to get a better education because they'll be able to go to the better universities because these countries have within themselves better communication, better training. So with that, we'd like to go on again to the harmonic point. That why exactly do we accept this motion right bloc. The present US point regarding inequality will point to us how this law, give an example of how the bigger the law is proposed against law, because then give an example of Soviet Union which actually does not stand. Then we've given an example like how the effectiveness which European Union does have in the present time will not be actually hampered if there are more countries joining in. Whereas we can see a better harmony taking place if there are more countries joining in. Now, again to conclude the problem that they have now is actually will be solved. So what we see here, dear speaker, is that this resolution, if passed, it is a betterment for the countries like in Central and South Asia, and of course for the European Union itself. So we see that this actually addresses a point on both sides. So to conclude, dear speaker, what have we actually present in this problem today? We've given you an example of economy, we've given you an example of democracy, we've shown to you how it's the most effective solution, and giving you an example of education, we proceed on to harmony. That with our own countries, since they're bounded by this trading bloc, so we see that yes, our resolution should be passed based upon that we have, and how the case versus the opposition side is actually flawed. Because we can expect a better harmony, most effective harmony coming in only when there are more countries to be joining in, only when we can see harmony between more and more countries. So what we see here, dear speaker, yes, that EU is a symbol of unity. And the symbol of unity can be made more effective if there are more countries inside Europe to joining in. So what we see here today, that the points that the opposition side did to presidents, we've clarified it clash by clash, that what they have said is actually wrong, is actually flawed. So at the end of the speech, I'd like to conclude it by saying that yes, for valid reason which we are president, we should propose this motion. Thank you.
I'd like to kindly ask those who are talking, especially besides sitting chairs, or I think they're walking. We have a dinner after this debate, and I think you need a pre-dinner preparation there. So I will request all the debaters and judges who are talking during this debate. This is a very important debate. If I'm not understanding the importance of this debate, please take the pre-dinner preparation. Thank you. Thank you very much, honorable member from the proposition side. Now I'd like to invite the last member to summarize the negative case presented by the opposition. The honorable member from the opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor, and a very, very good evening to all of you over here. Honorable Speaker, Team Opposition's main key clashes with Team Proposition has been on three sectors. Number one, Team Opposition says that the EU already has reached its optimum size, while the Proposition feels that it has not. Key clash two, we feel that the EU's that further integration and further inclusion will be counterproductive, while Team Proposition believes that it will not be so. And finally, number three, we believe that EU already has a perfect model for harmony, while the Team Proposition believes it is not harmonious at all, and it needs further integration for achieving harmony. Honorable Speaker, the first question over here that Team Opposition has been trying to ask each and every time. As we will look into the motion, it says that the House believes that the mind is like a parachute and it only works when it's open. Why does the European Union need to open up? What exactly does the European Union not enjoy right now, which they will if they integrate further? What exact benefits does the integration of what exact benefits does the integration of the Southeastern European countries or the Central Eastern European countries bring to the European Union that it already does not enjoy? I will tell you, and like Team Opposition has repeatedly said, what it already enjoys. It enjoys stability, which if further other countries from Southeastern Europe are included, it will not be so anymore the case. It will have to get rid of the stability and have to concentrate more and more on, as the proposition says, trying to help out these new countries who wants to join in the pact so that they can dream of a better future. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone would want to join an integration or an economic or a closed circuit which offers benefits. Everyone is acting for their self-interest. Any country would come in and say, okay, there is honey in there, I would love to join it. Why would the honeybee or the honeycomb invite these people in there? That was the whole point of the debate today. But the point is not taken. The proposition has repeatedly failed to give answers. We know that if these new countries come in, there might be some change. You have not told us what changes will be there. Unless or until the changes are positive for the entire European Union. Why did the European Union invite these people in the first place? What is it for the EU that they already do not enjoy, ladies and gentlemen? Therefore, my team's case stands much better, saying that they're already in harmony. They don't need it. Okay, take it.
Are you saying that the inflation rate that in the members within the European Union right now never goes up and down?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's common economic sense. Inflation rate can never be fixed. It of course goes up and down. However, what does affect is that the European Monetary Single Union Bank, which means, as I will bring up Ireland's example and many other countries' examples here, that the European Single Monetary Union Bank and the European Monetary Union that my second speaker has talked about sets a prerequisite. Until you maintain or achieve that prerequisite, you cannot join. Therefore, it goes to prove our argument that a country, when it joins the European Union, has to go through a multi-assessment process. Therefore, countries like Southeastern European Union, countries from Southeastern European Union, when they want to join the European Union, has to maintain a certain inflation level, which they cannot at the moment do so. At the moment, the status quo says that the Central and Southeastern European countries do not have that inflation rate in order to join the European Union. I hope that answers your question. The second key point, the second key class that we have talked about, how exactly is it going to be counterproductive, that my team opposition has been saying so for the last couple of minutes. My second speaker has talked about why adopting the single monetary union, how exactly it helps all the countries within there. Ladies and gentlemen, the countries which are already in the European Union have a very flexible financial policy, which means the central bank regulates the financial policy for all these countries. The question is that right now there is not much disparity among the countries who are the members. The problem is, if this proposal is taken into account by what the proposition says, there will be huge disparities in the level of financial regulation. How will the European Central Bank regulate the financial policy of a very small country like Kosovo with a country like UK? They're not even on the same par. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand, we're talking about comparison here. We're talking about why an integrated economy has to open up, because they're not on the same par. How is integration achieved? Integration can only happen, integration can only happen when they're on the same par, when countries are more or less on a level playing field. Of course, they all cannot be the same, because then there wouldn't be any different countries. There will all be one single country. But of course, when we have several different countries and when there are several disparity levels, one over here, the other very on the top, it's going to be impossible for the European Central Bank to actually regulate. Which means, if this country is joining, the European Union might fail, which we don't want to, because we believe it's harmonious, it's perfect the way it is, it's fine. Why do you want to change it? What is it? Please tell us that you feel will bring the benefits to the European Union. What benefits do your countries bring into the European Union for which it will flourish further? Honorable Speaker, the third key clash that team opposition had with team proposition in terms of harmony and cultural and how cultural exchanges will benefit all these other countries. Fine, we agree, there are lots of diversity. We have to understand at the same point as well. Culturally, people may not accept other cultures because they're already happy with what they have. The question over here, the question throughout the debate has been whether I'm happy with what I'm already am or whether I'm not. This is called self-actualization. That when I look at myself, am I content at the end of the day? Am I happy with having my breakfast early in the morning with bacon? Or do I have to include some other countries and think about, okay, this is how they have some food in those war-torn countries and I cannot have that? Am I happy with myself? If we can answer that, then definitely we can come up and think, and we can think about a better solution. The European Union is perfectly happy. The people in the European Union is happy the way their cultures are. They want to maintain it that way. They don't want cultural intrusion from other economies. The question is whether European Union's people want it or whether you want to force these countries into it so that everyone who's already in the European Union suffers from this cultural intrusion. Therefore, as we have repeatedly been proving over to you that harmony already exists, why do you want to take it?
Prove to us that the European Union, all the people in the European Union doesn't want new members to come in. Prove to
Ladies and gentlemen, I do not understand the propositions each and every time saying all people in the European Union, all people in the European Union. At the end of the day, I'm really not a statistical god that I'm going to come up with each and every statistic of each and every country. I'm a human being and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm a human being. I can make mistakes and I'm sorry that if I cannot provide you all statistics of all the European countries all of the time. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was continuing with my speech, finally, as human beings ourselves, as I've been saying, at the end of the day, it's about us. Are we happy with what we have? Yes, we are. Therefore, we would not like further cultural intrusion. We would not like further. Countries to add in and suffer and make us suffer from our economic policies. And we would not like further countries to add in and have an imbalance. The fact that the Central European countries will not be able to adapt to the Kyoto Protocol's emission rates itself says that the environment policy will be completely failed if the European Union has these countries into it. Therefore, the European Union will fail in the international arena. My team opposition has repeatedly said we don't want these failures. So finally, what were the three key clashes? What were we debating for all this time? First of all, the European Union has reached its optimum size, like our speaker has said. Second of all, it's going to be counterproductive if we add in more countries. And third of all, harmony is already there. We don't need any other cultural intrusion or any other people into it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Team proposition came up in today's debate and wanted to talk about economics, ladies and gentlemen. We thought it was a really good thing. However, ladies and gentlemen, one thing that we can understand from the proposition side is that they have no basic idea of how economic systems work. And that's exactly why team opposition is going to win today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll be telling you why, based on the three clashes that Rishad just highlighted right now, ladies and gentlemen. But the first key clash in today's debate has been about how the EU has reached its optimum size, ladies and gentlemen. And we stand by that argument. And we say that, ladies and gentlemen, because it has reached its optimum size, that is exactly why it has current growth rates. We always say that all economic systems aren't perfect. There's some imperfection. And those imperfections, ladies and gentlemen, under our model, under the existing scenario, can be tackled. Under their model, it's just going to increase. So again, team proposition does not win over team opposition. Our argument stands, ladies and gentlemen. Now going on to our next point, it is about how the existing countries, ladies and gentlemen, is actually going to be counterproductive if they want to come in because there are inequalities, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, because there is a charter that binds this economic integration. And when you go against the charter of this economic integration, ladies and gentlemen, it's a problem. Because, ladies and gentlemen, these countries are united on that charter. Team proposition in none of their speeches said they would amend the charter. So we say that they can't do that right now, ladies and gentlemen. So if they want to amend the charter, that means the existing countries like Britain, countries like France, ladies and gentlemen, will have more reservations. There will be contention, and it will not do any benefit to the EU. But team proposition's burden today was, ladies and gentlemen, that they have to tell us how the EU would benefit, not these countries, ladies and gentlemen. And as we've shown to you, if these countries come in, ladies and gentlemen, it's actually the EU that's going to be detrimentally affected. So thank you very much, team proposition, for saying the team opposition wins today's debate. We're going on to a third argument, ladies and gentlemen, about how if these countries come in and how the current policy is going to be a good thing. Because, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that these disparities won't exist. How have we done this in today's debate? We've talked about the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, and how these disparities exist already, ladies and gentlemen. And if these disparities, ladies and gentlemen, will continue if these countries are allowed. Under the status quo, yes, there are certain problems, ladies and gentlemen, and these are being tackled. Even though it comes at a high cost to the EU, even though they have to give more subsidies over here, they still understand that they made a mistake, but they think that it's better, ladies and gentlemen, that they stay and stick to the current status quo. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly why anything the team proposition that I have brought up today doesn't go to rebut that argument. We've also talked about the environment, ladies and gentlemen, how the EU is the greatest promoter of environmental regulations in the world. And we think it has an obligation to Kyoto. And we understand, ladies and gentlemen, that these CIRs, that these countries, CITs, these countries in transition, ladies and gentlemen, will have different obligations. Because their base year, ladies and gentlemen, is 1995, not 1990. So if they have different obligations, the EU, ladies and gentlemen, will not be able to reach its own economic perspective. And the global community will actually have a bad image of the EU. And we definitely wouldn't want that proposition. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the final thing that Sumaiya seems to hammer us over and over again about this idea of how, you know what, the existing countries will have a problem with these countries coming in. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the UK already has a problem with not joining the Eurozone because it believes there are disparities, ladies and gentlemen. We say the EU is working well with the support of the UK, but we understand that if more countries are allowed to get in, more countries, not only the UK right now, ladies and gentlemen, France, Germany, etc., are going to actually have problems with this, and the European Constitution will again be broken, and this will be counterproductive to the EU. So thank you, Sumaiya. I think that answers your question. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what a steam proposition told you in today's debate. We understand that today's debate is about economics. Today's debate is about the betterment of the EU and how the EU has done a good thing in the past 50 years. But we realize, ladies and gentlemen, the EU has done a good thing in the past 50 years because it has actually been part of the niche group. That is, ladies and gentlemen, they've actually formed on an ideology, on similar political systems, similar economic systems, and similar social systems, ladies and gentlemen. Because when countries in transition who are from Eastern European countries want to join, ladies and gentlemen, people won't like it, ladies and gentlemen, because they'll have a different mindset. They won't like it because the economies are different and they'll have to suffice for it. So in all these cases, ladies and gentlemen, in environment, economics, and every other way, team opposition wins this debate by a mile. Thank you very much.